Okay, we're live, Andree.
Yeah. So I kick off right away.
Yes, so you're reading from my book, Closer to God, A Journey to the Self. You are at page 500 and
529 I'm at now, so to speak.
right, and what's the heading?
Um, and the first page I start on is 523.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
what's the theme?
Any symbolic pattern that has served as a focus for human emotions and energy will build up an egregore of its own over time. And the more energy put into such a pattern, the more potent the egregore that will form around it. And yeah, it is really interesting that part about egregores. And I have written down the book about egregores that you have recommended before.
With
And
Mark Stavish.
what do you say?
Mark
Yeah,
Stavish.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Mark Stavish. And it's I came to think about the groups and all that kind of stuff. The more you practice rituals within a group, one should have the awareness what is created as well, you know?
Yeah. You see, these egregores, Uh, they are a manifestation of energy, and they are also said to be real entities. They
Yeah.
can manifest into uh, some variety of real energy. And so, how the egregore manifests is when we have human consciousness focusing uh, on a certain thing, i.e., let's take Jesus
Yeah.
as an example. Now, I had this experience, and every cell in my body told me it was Jesus, and I saw Jesus' face in that mural. And it's still there now. I can still see it now, but I never ever saw it there for 3 years before. And when I came out of deep meditation, listening to 432 hertz, I laid on my couch and I just, coming back into the world. And I looked over onto that mural behind me, and I'm like, what the fuck? It's like Jesus' face. So I got up from the couch and I went and looked at it all different sorts of ways. I'm like, it's Jesus' fucking face. It's head, it's life shape,
Yeah.
and he's got a little goatee, a little moustache, and long hair, and straight nose. And I went back and lied down on the couch, and I kept looking at it. And then I had this incredible spiritual, religious experience whereby my whole body started to vibrate and pulsate and throb and tingle, and waves of ecstasy running up and down, like the onset of leaving the body in an
Yeah.
astral projection. This is pretty similar, only it was vastly more intense, and tears were streaming down my cheeks with the bliss. And then the voice in my head said, if you want to know what true love is, you have to come through me. And so I didn't know what that meant really at the time. But then I realized that, well, he's speaking about unconditional love. If you want to
Yeah.
know what unconditional love is, real love, then you have to go through him. And that's what is said in the whole of the New Testament. Jesus is love, is unconditional love. Now, about 6 months prior to that, I had an experience on 3.5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms where I was chastised by what I knew to be Jehovah. Yahweh, it's the same thing, only different people called and different names.
Yeah.
And he was chastising me for my um, decrying of love. And he was showing me that absolutely everything in this cosmos was love. He showed me that the light flickering from the leaves was love. He showed me that the light on the fleeces, a lamb's fleece, was love. He showed me that the waving of a grass was love. He showed me that the bark on a tree was love. The clouds were love. Everything was love. We're all love. And I'm like, holy motherfucker. And this went on for 3.5 hours while he was reminding me of all the times I had decried love. And
Mm.
and so that was exceedingly powerful. So, having had those two experiences, I needed to work out what those things were because I didn't believe in them. I wasn't a Christian, albeit, of course, I've studied the Bible and Christianity for 10 years. Um, and I've had experiences, pretty supernatural experiences before. And so I needed to work out what manifestations they were because I found it difficult to accept that it is Yahweh up in the sky somehow, and it's Jesus up in the sky. Albeit, I know there are these astral beings and all different sorts of creatures all around, and of course, it's very, very possible because there are all these entities all around. But God showed me His conditional love. He was berating me. He was giving me tough love, and I was sobbing for 3.5 hours whilst I was on this trip. Whilst he reminded me of all of the times I didn't want to accept love because I found it very, very difficult to accept love in my life due to my mother killing herself when I was 4 years old. That's a difficult pill to swallow. And so that wasn't enough. So then the Son had to come. Jesus had to come. And albeit I do know that everything, the cosmos is love, I'm still not willing to partake in love because of the fickle nature of it. I don't like the fickle nature of human love. You see, Jesus' love, Andree, was absolutely powerful beyond measure. You couldn't stand that level of love for more than a few seconds. It lasted for about 30 seconds or a minute, and it was completely debilitating. My whole body was just shaking, trembling, and bliss is coming up and down the body. And incidentally, I'd read a book. I think it was after that, from William James, the American philosopher, and he wrote a book called Varieties of Religious Experience. And when I read that book, yes, I read it after because I bought it after because I needed to know. And there was one religious experience in that book, and all the religious experiences come from very, very respected people, clergy people, and people that were renowned for being honest and upstanding. And one of these experiences was almost exactly the same as mine. And this person was speaking from like the late 1800s or the early 1900s. This encounter with this incredible wave of bliss that just shook into the core. And so there's something going on. So what is it that's going on? Now, lots of people are able to accept God, Jesus, Allah, Muhammad, whatever, they're able to do that. I'm not able to do that. I'm simply not able to accept blind faith. And so it appears that Yahweh has sent me lots of messages, and still he hasn't cracked this nut. I really embrace love. I embrace the love of the world. I'm thrilled with life and the gift of it, God consciousness, and I can sing songs about that all day long. I can. But a particular variety of God, like Yahweh, who's reputed to be the demiurge and very often spoken about as being the devil himself, well, I'm not prepared to start praying and begging for the man in the sky, and I don't need Jesus in my life. I'm completely full with cosmic love and cosmic God consciousness, whatever that
Mm.
pertains to. But so what I'm saying is that I considered that these entities that spoke with me were egregores. Now, egregores, they make manifest by millions of people focusing on them. They create them from the cosmos.
Yeah.
However they do it, Andree, they do it. And so it's
Yeah.
like God imagining in the beginning, was the word, and the word was good, and, said this and that, let it be. Well, when we, shards of God consciousness, when our collective consciousness is focused on one man or image or notion, well, we make it manifest. And so this
Yeah.
is why Jesus will, there was one of the viewers, who's a long-term viewer, a very spiritual person, and he wrote to me yesterday in one of the comments and in an email telling me of an incredible experience where Jesus went to him.
Mm.
He saw him in some sort of spiritual dream, and then he felt this entity sitting on his bed, and he knew it was Jesus. And he said, "Look, I'm not religious, and I don't, worship Jesus or anything like that, but there's something there, and there is something there." So these energy manifestations. Now, the devil also, or demons, they are the
Yeah.
same sort of thing.
Yeah.
These things do exist in some conscious ethereal form,
Yeah.
astral beings or ethereal beings or elementals or whatever. They exist, and it's a very, very curious subject. These egregores, and so I've studied as much as I could on them because there's very little written about them. And if you go to buy any books, then Mark Stavish is about the only person that's wrote a book, and it's only about half-inch thick or three-quarters of an inch thick. There's not much to be said on it, but
Yeah.
um, I believe that Madame Blavatsky is going to be speaking more about that subject in the next edition, and so I'm looking forward to that. But so it's a very, very complex and profound subject, and I think that's what all these energy forms are. Anything that's had an enormous amount of energy put into it. Listen, like Elvis, Bruce Lee, they never die. They never die. Their spirit lives on. Elvis lives through me. John Lennon, Paul McCartney. I mean, Paul McCartney's still alive, but John Lennon lives through me. No doubt about that.
Mm.
And I often embody him when I'm doing a Beatles rendition, because invariably I'm always singing Lennon's songs and not McCartney's songs, because McCartney sings too high for me.
Mm.
So, what are your feelings on the egregore?
Mm. I think I come to that later. I thought about also the topic of love that you brought up and so on.
Yeah,
And that the thing about that is that I often, when I grew up, I felt like I wasn't from my mother, so to speak.
right,
And I even said that to my mother. I don't think I'm from you and such a thing. But
right.
apparently I am,
And so,
because
what did she say?
I do look like my father a lot.
You didn't
And
what?
I do look like my father.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, she don't like to hear that kind of stuff, but I also, the first time I had motherly feeling towards somebody was when I was 19, and that was my best friend's mother.
Right.
Because yeah, she was something else, you know.
Right.
There was hard to describe, but she was instead of me going out partying and stuff, we sat home with his mother and ate food, and it was always very pleasant, you know. And
So,
so
what was it? Some sort of sexual attraction, or what was it then? A
no,
motherly
no,
thing? Was it
no,
a motherly?
no such a thing as sexual attraction, but the feeling I got was like, oh, she's like angelic, like almost like an angel in her way of being, you know.
Right.
Because I lived at her family home as well, and of course that's a late age to live in a family home. But I was first thrown out by my mother when I stabbed her husband with a knife, and then then uh, I lived at my father's place for 1.5 years. And then he threw me out too, you know. Uh, and then I could live at my friend's mother's family home.
Right. And they
So I
threw you
lived
out.
there for 2.5. What do you say?
And they threw you out in the end.
Yeah, because I was like 21 and a half
Right.
when I got off that, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, when I lived at my father's place, it was much like living by myself too, because I had the upper place and he had the down place, so to
Right.
speak.
Hmm.
And so that was like a different feeling that I have never gotten before that I got from her. You know,
Hmm.
it's very interesting because I never felt that about my mother, you know.
Yeah. That's
Mm.
curious.
Yeah,
Very curious. And I wonder why that was. I wonder why you had no spiritual connection with her.
yeah, because she always were very different to me, you know,
Yeah.
and also probably very neurotic, you know,
Hmm.
and my father, he was like he has more the aspect of like he hates his children a bit, you know.
Right. So you have
So
a brother. Is it older or younger?
he's younger than me.
Hmm.
Yeah. And we
Uh,
were often very violent towards each other. I was the one that was a bit worse, you know. Uh, one time I punched him in the head, and he flew backwards and smacked like like a corner where
oh.
the window paled. So
Yeah.
he needed to get a few stitches here and glue together a little
Right.
bit of the skull, you know. So back then I was very worried, but it went well. It could get
Yeah.
very bad,
Hmm.
and that would not be fun because my brother is my brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my relationship with my elder brother was very, very, um, very much always in an altercation.
Yeah.
We were always fighting, always from a very, very young age. In actual fact, we used to fight so often. Our old man bought us boxing gloves one Christmas.
Okay.
And then whenever me and my older brother would be arguing or about to have a fight, he'd go, right, get the gloves. My old man, so get the gloves, and he'd be the referee. and then we'd smack the shit out of each other until one of us got a nosebleed, and then we'd have to stop.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. But you see, I was like 2.5 years younger than my brother, but
Yeah.
I was ferocious, and he always had the greatest of respect for me because he knew I'd always be the first to attack. Uh,
Mm.
even though he could overpower me, with his strength and size in the end. But I'd have a right good go, and I'd draw blood. So
A cunning.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My
Just
brother, he was cunning though.
was it? Mm.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why he got away a lot. You know, I run after him with a knife and tried to get into the door. So I'm glad I didn't manage to get through that door back at that
Yeah.
point.
So what is it with you and knives then? Stabbing all your family.
Uh, because when I was 12 years old, I saw my father hold a knife, when he tried to get at my mother.
Right.
So
So
he
it's in the
tried to,
family.
yeah, but the family was pretty okay back until my father went a bit drunk back when I was 12. Before that, he never drank.
Right.
So my mother was in the toilet, and my father tried to get in. And
Yeah.
I see that now where I saw that the first time.
Sounds like that film, The Shining.
Yeah, I was very nervous. Yeah, I smacked the guitar in my father's head as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Then I was only 12 years old. He fell down to the ground and was bleeding through his head.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, um, moving on then.
Yeah. So on page 524, this psychic, astral, and autonomous entity, egregore, will continue as long as thought energy feeds it. But it does not have to be the same people feeding anymore. It doesn't have to be the same people feeding energy for the entity to continue and eventually become independent.
It can get its
Yeah,
energy from many people.
yeah. So it can also eventually fade away and discontinue.
Yeah, once nobody gives it any energy anymore.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. Or take a different form, even. But that may be hard to conceive at times whether a certain uh, egregore get a different form or it fades altogether. Or is there something like that?
I don't really know what you mean by different forms, but there are benevolent egregores and there are malevolent ones,
Ah,
and of
yeah,
course
get
it
it.
pertains to the energy which is projected. So, i.e., Satan
Yeah,
is negative energies projected onto him. Everything
yeah,
that's an abomination to the human being is projected onto uh, that egregore. So, what do you expect from that egregore energy form? Human beings have created it. You see, the human beings have created Satan, the devil, because
yeah,
there was no such thing in the Old Testament, and very very little said in the New Testament. They're manifestations of writers, throughout history. which have depicted what this Satan character could look like and the
Yeah.
things he could do and the powers he's got. But there's very, very little said. And there's no such thing as hell in the Old Testament.
Hmm.
There's only like Sheol or Gehenna, and those were places in those particular regions. One of the places was where they used to dump all the rubbish and burn it. I think that was called Gehenna. And so it's a constant fire. So then hell became that, just a barren land, just smoking and burning all the time. And
Hmm.
Sheol, I think Sheol just meant in the grave. So when you die, you go to Sheol, in the ground. It's not a place. So yeah, I've got on my bookshelves the Divine trilogy. Divine Comedy, which is the trilogy. It's Hell, Purgatory, and Heaven, and then Milton's Paradise Lost. And within those books, then this is where the devil and hell's born. And so they're all figments and creation of the human being. You see, the vast majority of people, they don't know this, Andre. And when I'm always decrying and having a go and jousting with Christians, they've got no idea that hell and that Satan was an invention of modern times.
Hmm. Yeah. I wonder what the Orthodox Christians look how their exact look upon it is done, because they are the oldest Christians, really.
Well, what do you mean Orthodox? You mean the Orthodox Jews?
Orthodox Christians, the ones that they have in Egypt, like Coptic Orthodox
Oh,
and
right. Okay.
Serbian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, and so
Right.
on.
Mm,
It's a branch of its own.
yeah.
And they often seem more reasonable in a way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's been lots of perversions in um, recent times attributed to the Catholic Church,
Yeah,
and even with the Council of Nicaea, which compiled the original manuscripts into the Bible. They chose the 66 books out of hundreds,
yeah.
and yeah, they cherry picked everything, and so we know this to a very, very real extent due to the Nag Hammadi scrolls and scriptures and the Dead Sea Scrolls. With the likes of the Book of Thomas and other books which never made it into the Bible. So we've got a very different side of Jesus, and so yeah, I mean, I listen to these biblical scholars all the time, and there's so many places where they've just changed what the words mean, and they've changed sentences, and they've actually added whole paragraphs to certain books, it's proven, it's absolutely proven. The King James version was a fabrication, from original texts. But anyway, not to get too embroiled in all that stuff. Let's
Yeah,
concentrate
yeah.
on what you've got there.
Yeah. The next line is on page 524 also, and it's from this book by Gustave Le Bon, The Crowd, A Study of the Popular Mind. Individual on his own may act with the highest moral character and
The
compassion.
individual, the individual on his own will act as a very high moral character.
Yeah, exactly. Individual on his own may act with the highest moral character and compassionate heart. Still, in a crowd, that same individual can be swept away and behave as total blockhead, losing the sense of his integrity to the group's energy. Yeah, that's also what we see when the masses come together, like demonstrating against a common cause or something, you know?
Yes. So what can we say about that then? If we're looking for this manifestation of human consciousness, which is crowd psychology,
Yeah,
there is an energy which manifests in crowd psychology. So it's very reasonable to assume that it is, in actual fact, an entity which is born out of the runaway aggression of the crowd. Because, like that study showed, individually, people have jobs, families, kids, and this and the other, and their integrity is high, and their risk is low individually. But when they go into a crowd, they get intoxicated by this energy, which
yeah,
gives them a sense that they are larger than life, because they pertain to the energy of the crowd, and they
yeah,
will smash things and break things, and cause physical damage to people, because they have some sort of a feeling that they can't be apportioned blame, because it was the crowd that did it. The crowd made them do that, the energy. And if somebody is attacked, then, who knows how many people attacked this person, and who's responsible for murder or whatever.
yeah.
It's that energy within the crowd
Mhm.
that's very, very dangerous. And so we always have to be very, very mindful of marauding crowds.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people might propagate for triggering like resistance movement and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Mm.
And I am very much not that kind, you know. I rather focus on the spiritual growth and the like a tribe building in a circle instead of doing that. Leave that to the others, so to speak.
Mm.
I think, you know, I have been a part of like organizations and such in the past when I was younger, you know, even national socialist organizations, nationalist organization, and so on. You know.
Yeah.
And there were demonstrations, and there was riots sometime, and so on. And um, I, um, I know in fights and so on, I have had mind of my own at certain points, you know. Especially when it's many on one person. I have looked like, yeah, that doesn't need to happen because I don't know what that person's intention was. Maybe he was just not the right person to kick in the head, you
Yeah.
know.
So
So,
there's
so I've been able to back off when I don't feel it's right, and so on, you
So you're not
know.
being swallowed up by the egregore. But lots of
Yeah,
people who are not familiar with this stuff, they're not familiar with the supernatural. They won't be able to get their heads around such a notion. But for those people who have had contact with the supernatural, the paranormal, the spiritual, and know that these entities actually exist, uh,
yeah,
then we need to be very considerate when considering these things. Um, and so in the book, I write about how governments, parliaments, they manifest around egregores. There's lots of areas where egregores will manifest, and there is a pervasive energy which uh, it hangs around.
yeah,
It hangs around, and I think, like I was speaking about the morphic resonance, I think these realms are they're already there. There's some dormant manifestation of energy, which will get triggered and come alive. Um, I suppose like some sort of a spirit, because if you look at human beings, well, when does our spirit enter the human being? Because we're not self-aware until about 18 months. So before 18 months, we will appear not to have a spirit because we don't have self-awareness. We're just little more than primates, you see. So therefore then it's reasonable to assume that these spirits enter groups as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what else did you pull out of it? What else did you find that's really interesting?
Um, I think about those people that are triggering resistance and so on as well. You know, often it can be very black and white, and they use wordings that are like know that they can trigger a certain emotion in people. You know, it doesn't need to be rational. It just is the word that it comes out, that he knows that the tonality of the voice and the pauses in between and so on when he speaks will trigger the crowd, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
So that's all those kind of sub uh, things
So,
as well.
in the book, I look at these things from several vantages. Uh, to look at certain energy forms as egregores is one facet, but to look at the collective consciousness and the collective unconscious is also a very, very powerful thing, because it depends who you're speaking to, you see. Because if we're speaking to maybe someone like Rudolf Steiner or Madame Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society or somebody like that, then they would have an inclination towards egregores. Whereas psychoanalysts, they would be speaking about collective consciousness or collective unconsciousness. They wouldn't be considering there's anything too supernatural, albeit the collective consciousness and the collective unconscious, of course, is supernatural.
Yeah,
It's over and above the natural consciousness of the individual. It's a phenomenon unto itself. So therefore, it is, in actual fact, a spirit.
yeah. The collective unconscious is gathering all people around itself instead of just the individual.
Yep.
So everybody within it, you know.
Yes.
When I think about that, I also think about like different people have a different collective consciousness as well, you know.
Yeah,
Like
different cultures, different religions, and
yeah,
different levels of education, and all different sorts of things. Yeah, we have an affinity with some people, and we don't have any connection with others,
yeah,
because we're not in their paradigm of vibration.
yeah. And it is really interesting how no matter how we twist and turn it, it is like Muhammad Ali said, it's same feathered bird flock together. So
Yeah,
we look at different people. Okay, if we are at a pub, there are like say 4 or 5 white dudes, there are 3 black dudes, there are like 2 or 3 Latinos, then automatically they will get together that together, and those will be together there. But maybe they will intermingle a little bit, but still they have a affinity to the in group. All it's always like that, you know. It was like an Egyptian guy I talked to. He said, "We are all racists." He said, "We all have that within us." When I first came to West and I came to Sweden, I had never heard the word racist. We were always joking about each other if one were black and one was like a
yeah,
brown Egyptian, and nobody had took any offense really. More than when he came to Sweden, he saw it the first time, and He thought it was ridiculous, and so on.
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, 20 years before you, um, racist wasn't a word.
No.
It wasn't in common parlance. Nobody said it. Nobody thought it. Um, we all had differences with everybody. The ginger haired guy would get just as much flack as the Indian guy or the African guy or any other creed, Spanish guy, whatever.
Yeah.
Kids, when you're kids, you notice differences and
Yeah.
you make fun of them or you bring them to the awareness and. It was perfectly acceptable and we all seem to get along very, very fine.
Yeah.
It's a fabrication, this racist thing. It is
Yeah.
absolutely designed to divide us. We never needed it, and we don't need it. I was listening to um, a couple, several black people, film stars and pop stars and people like that, and there was one guy. Um, what was his name? Not Samuel L. Jackson, not Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington, Denzel
Mm.
Washington, and so people were saying to the interviewer was saying to Denzel Washington, so what are you going to do on African month or something? And he's like, what? And he said, African month, it's Black History Month, and he said, I'm going to do nothing. Well, what do you mean? Aren't you supporting, your people? He said, what are you doing? What nationality are you? And he said, I'm Jewish. And Denzel Washington says, so do you have a Jewish month? And he went, well, no. And he says, well, neither do I need one.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that one. I think it's Morgan Freeman,
No,
actually.
it's not Morgan Freeman, it's Denzel Washington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I see. I
most
see.
certainly, because I only watched it last night.
Okay, okay. I actually thought it was Morgan Freeman. Okay, yeah.
But Morgan Freeman is in that same video. You see Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman, you see Denzel Washington, you see other black people, and so okay, I may have got you wrong, but I don't think so.
Mhm.
Because I was only watching it last night, and he's kind of like, so what we're going to do about racism? And then it was Morgan Freeman. He said, "Stop talking about it.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it. It goes away." It's you fuckers that keep talking about it all the time, which makes it manifest
Yeah.
because it was never a thing with people. You see, look in America. I mean, we've never been overtly racist in Britain. We were the first
No.
country on the planet to abolish slavery, and to be quite frank, we never had any. In Britain, we never had sugar plantations or anything like that. But America
No.
had millions of them in the South, of course, on their sugar plantations and farms and things like that. And then
Yeah.
in the colonies in the Caribbean and in Central America, South America, all these sorts of places. Um, but yeah, and then America maintained their racism because there were so many ex-slaves in their country, but we never had the ex-slaves in our country, and so it
No.
wasn't an issue.
No.
And when we opened our borders to ex-colonial countries, like Ghana and India and all different sorts of places like that, then you know um, it was okay. It was cool because we all thought, well, they're colonial countries, and
Yeah.
we've grown rich on their back, and now they're suffering, like in Ethiopia with the famine and everything, and
Mm.
then the different things going on around the world. We opened up our borders to them because we owed them. Uh, you know.
Mm.
Anyway,
Mm.
best move on to another line because
Yeah.
we can get
Absolutely.
diverted so many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And on page 225, the crowd,
525.
yeah, yeah, 525. uh, 525. The crowd egregore arises quickly. Its passion carries the crowd, but because the crowd is not an organized, stable group with intention, the demon egregore is dissipated rapidly. So it gets like something just flung into like a cannon fodder, so to speak.
Yeah. When you've got angry crowds with no direction, that's when one of these nefarious egregores is going to manifest.
Yeah,
And,
and
you know,
somebody could step in there and take the reign, some charismatic demagogue or something.
hmm, if their voice could be heard, but, in a big marauding crowd, I don't think it's feasible, really.
No. So on the same page, 225, the power of the egregore to help and sustain a group increases over time through its members' repeated actions, ceremonies, or rituals. Yeah, so keep on doing the habit, which increases the egregores' power, so to
Yeah.
speak. Like all the rituals they have within the church and so on, the
Yeah,
sermons.
and in monarchy, they
Yeah,
keep the egregore alive. They keep that energy vampire alive. And
yeah,
you see, with the recent coronation of King Charles in Britain, um, people love that pageantry, and nobody on the planet does pageantry better than the British. And so it's an institution renowned all over the world. And anyone that's like proud to be British likes the royal family because it sets them over and above the vast majority of other countries, because our monarchy has been renowned for being good, positive, and all these different sorts of things for a long, long time.
yeah,
And we've had kings like Henry VIII, and then we've had Elizabeth I, and the armies they had, and the Armada that Elizabeth I had, defeating the Spanish Armada, and all lots of different things like that. So it's an institution for us. We've grown up with it, and I listen to debates speaking about should we have a republic and dismantle the monarchy and things like that. And of course, many educated people, they want to keep the monarchy. It's the dumb ass lefties or the new liberals, that want to break everything down because they don't understand anything or appreciate anything. But
yeah,
if they read a bit of history, then they might pull their necks in and stop being dumbasses.
yeah. We also have a monarchy in Sweden, though.
Right.
But it's just for representation, and the king and the queen we have today is Bernadette, so they are really from the French monarchy to begin with, you know.
Right, they're French, are they?
Yeah,
Well, ours are
but
German.
yeah, okay. But Yeah, that's about it. I do have a certain interest for the monarchy and so on, like old kings like Carl XII, Carolus Rexus. I mean, he was a great warrior, even if he lost big parts of Sweden and so on.
Yeah, so it's fascinating stuff when people get involved in it, but most people don't know their history or care about it anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, egregores live there. Egregores are kept alive by those, and it's the rituals that keep egregores alive. And like you say, in the Catholic Church, huge egregore pertaining to that, the energy all over the globe. And so they are actual manifestations of supernatural energy, and these priests that do these rituals know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
Hmm. Because they've been doing it forever. It's magic. It's actual magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm. On page 527, the atmosphere created by an egregore can be so common we may be inclined to ignore it. Everyone has walked into a room full of people and immediately hit with a sense of something: dread, fear, joy. It can also be very subtle, so subtle you are not aware of its influence until you are away from the group supporting the egregore. The test of a knowledgeable person of strong character is to be mindful of the egregore's presence, keep separate from it, and decide whether to allow its influence.
Hmm.
That's a good point, to be aware of certain things within groups and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you won't be manipulated as long as you
Yeah.
know what's going on, as long as you can feel the energy and intuit the energy.
Yeah.
Then you won't get swept up with it.
Yeah. And we, as you know, I have a tribe of people, and we grown a bit and so on. And there was one guy within that tribe, um, because I want the people to be trusted and be able to, like, it's a circle where we can be honest towards each other and so on.
Yeah.
That the other guy, he was like, oh, we need to turn this into like a resistance movement and so on. And I kind of, yeah, I don't gave it too much attention, I didn't felt any like hostility or anything like that towards it. It was like, yeah, most of the people there wasn't on that side of the spectrum, but he liked to stand in the center often, and because
Mm.
I'm very honest and so on, and he's like the opposite kind of guy,
But-
the kind of guy that has a facade all the time,
Right. Yeah.
and I thought it was interesting, and we had our little ritual around the solar eclipse recently,
Right.
and yeah, um, it has. I could imagine that it would be like a split within it sooner or later, because if somebody is propagating that way, and so on, and
Well, if you just look at Hitler,
yeah,
how he worked the people into a fury, uh,
yeah,
an absolutely incredible energy. Nobody on the planet has ever commanded such attention. When you watch the Nuremberg speeches, you've got hundreds of thousands of people there, all standing absolutely stiff in regiments, as far as
Yeah.
the eye can see, like a brown ocean. And
Yeah.
the Hell Führer and all that, just a massive egregore. And of course, the egregore wanted to encompass the world.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, I mean, I think we've covered egregores now. We've done an hour on that. We can move on to something else.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I have only a few underlinings left, you know.
Okay.
So next is also around uh, every group, co- congregation, society, or party has an egregore. So it's about egregores again, you know.
Yeah.
So I take that one. Every group, congregation, society, or party has an egregore, a group consciousness, which may be weak or strong. Before joining any organization, it is essential to be aware that affiliation makes one subject to the egregore of that group. This awareness makes it easier to understand that the views of the group do not necessarily have to be your views. Accepting the group's influence is a conscious decision.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
So when people enter into the Masons, they have to accept the power of the egregore over them.
Yeah,
And there's an exchange. The exchange is that you will be privy to privileges and information, but you are then owned by the egregore, and
yeah,
your energy will be used. And so it's a bit like, I suppose, selling your soul to Mephistopheles, because once you're in, you can't get out.
yeah,
And if you divulge things from the inner circle, then they'll kill you.
yeah. And
So you need to be very, very mindful about entering that sort of egregore.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So, did you want to speak about narcissism for the second hour?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing just to see your perspective and your mind around it and so on, you know, being experienced around it, maybe, and
Yeah,
so on. And I, at the point when I wrote that to you, I just, it was like spontaneous in a way, you know.
oh, okay. So you haven't had experience yourself?
I have probably have had one another experience from it, you know,
Yeah,
and so on. It's often very frustrating to be around the narcissists and so on.
yeah,
I find because the, you don't penetrate them, you
no,
know.
yeah,
And if you do something that they don't like, you are always the scapegoat and
yeah,
so on.
yeah.
And it's yeah,
It's impossible. It's
yeah,
impossible to deal with a narcissist
yeah,
because every single thing they'll turn it back round via their gaslighting, and whatever. If you accuse a narcissist of doing something which isn't conducive to your relationship or anyone's relationship, they'll turn it round in an instant, and it's all your fault, and you're the one with the failings, and you're projecting it onto them, and it really is vile. The tactics they use and the gaslighting is vile. And if you really want to know about narcissists, then there's several people on YouTube that you can look into. One of them is Sam Vaknin.
yeah.
Um,
He's great. Yeah,
yeah, and then another one is Richard Gannon.
yeah,
He's got, I don't know, hundreds of videos out, and and of course there's lots of other people, there's doctors and all different sorts of people, and every one of these people, they've had deep and disturbing relationships with narcissists, and they are absolutely compelled to talk about it. And one day will talk about mine, but
Yeah.
it is so disturbing. It disturbs your energy just to
Yeah.
revisit it. That's why I haven't addressed it.
Mm.
Even now, and I
Mm.
don't know when I will, because they are evil.
Yeah.
They really are evil. There's no other way about it. They manipulate people to such an extent that they want to send you insane.
Mm. Yeah, it's crazy. So behind that facade, there's a deep trauma that
Yeah,
they can't handle,
yeah,
and because it's hard to know the depth of a certain person, one can just speculate how their mind works, really.
yeah. Because you can never get to the root of anything. You can never
No.
penetrate
Hmm.
because
Because
they're
when
never
you
going to divulge.
yeah, because even when you try to look in their eyes, they don't flinch. They
No,
don't flinch, even if they bear so much untruth in them. They don't flinch. I
yeah.
think that is. Hmm.
They'll look into your eyes, and they'll tell you to believe them, believe me, and they can do the most uh, disgusting and absurd things. And they can tell you that they were there when they weren't, and they didn't do that when they did. And there can be, 50 other witnesses around the vicinity, and this person will deny every single one of them. That's you that's going insane. You're the one that's making all this up, and they're very good at it. I don't know
Yeah.
why they're good at it. I think these narcissists, it's a variety of spirit. It's an evil spirit. It's an evil demon, and it's
Yeah.
stereotypical because they're all the same. And
Yeah.
that's the thing about it. There's not a whole bunch of variants. No, they're all the fucking same, and all the things they do are stereotypical in narcissistic traits.
Yeah.
They're just classic. And so
Yeah.
when you go online and you listen to people, they'll reel off all of these. They've got technical terminologies for what they do. Um, grey rocking and flying monkeys and gaslighting and all this different sort of stuff. They narcissists use all those.
Yeah.
And everyone will have their stories and go, yeah, 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 that's what she or he was doing to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you ever approach the narcissist on that, oh, you'll see violence. You'll see violence.
Yeah. They will burst out. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you tell them, the thing you're doing there is really manipulative, then
Yeah.
they will burst out in anger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hmm. Yeah. I think I have had a natural inclination to stay away from that.
Mm,
Uh, like I don't bring it near me. But if other people are with a certain person and I know those people, then that person can be in the vicinity.
yeah. There's one thing to look out for, and this is when I started to cotton on that I was dealing with a narcissist, because they'll tell you that they're your twin flame
Hmm.
if they have sexual inclinations towards you. And of
Yeah.
course, narcissists are always sexual manipulators. They manipulate the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Invariably, they don't have the passion to do it unless they can get into your soul and spirit and destroy you. And they're only going to do that in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
So they'll tell you that they are your twin flame, and that's why things are up and down, and it's very difficult, and this, that, and the other. And then you look into twin flames, and then when you look into twin flames deep enough, you'll start to get people saying, "Oh, by the way, you need to be careful when you're dealing with what you think is a twin flame because they might not be a twin flame, they might be a narcissist." They
Hmm.
might be an imposter, a devil in disguise. And it's kind of like, wow, this is how evil these narcissists are because they actually come under the guise of a benevolent loving, cosmic twin, a cosmic twin, your twin from the cosmos. They'll tell you that, we have this pact, up in the heavens, that we was going to come to Earth and we was going to meet up, and we powerful love affair and all these different sorts of things, and you can get drawn into it. It is very intoxicating, and
Yeah.
then they do the love bombing. That's the classic. What they do, they'll shower you, love bomb you. They'll love bomb you with texts and nice things and this, that, and the other, and then they'll do the opposite, the opposite in an instant, and
Hmm.
they'll keep you highly confused and terrorized.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And the difficulty is with people, if they have children, you can never ever get rid of them. You can never get rid of them. And that's
Then you
that.
always have to do deal with them. Yeah.
Yeah, you've always got to deal with them. And you see, Richard Grannon, he has children with one. And
Hmm.
fuck, when you got to deal with that to see your kids, they're always pulling strokes, they're always punishing you, they're always setting out to destroy you via the kids and everything. They've got no shame, no morals, no heart,
Hmm.
nothing. They're empty. They're evil. They're evil.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very dangerous entities, narcissists.
Yeah.
People speak about narcissism very flippantly these days.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so too. It's like everybody can say, "Oh, that person over there is a narcissist, and and that is a narcissist."
yeah,
Well, that's a very shallow way of putting it, you know.
yeah, because there's 9 classic traits of a grandiose narcissist, and to be a grandiose narcissist, you'll need to tick 7 of the 9 boxes.
Yeah,
But most people don't know anything about the intricacies of narcissism. But if someone loves themselves, or if someone is self-centered, then he's a narcissist because people are idiots.
yeah,
Lots of people these days are exhibiting narcissistic behavior.
yeah,
They're very grandiose. They're very um, self-centered and self-oriented, and dismissive of anybody else's needs and things like that. They're all
yeah.
about themselves, and there's videos going around of people when they go to Birkenau or Auschwitz, and in Auschwitz where they've got the ovens, which apparently whereby they did the burning, you can actually lie in them. Funnily
I've
enough,
seen that. Yeah,
yeah, people take photos, like this or
yeah,
whatever, and it's kind of like, you know, if the story was remotely true,
yeah,
uh, those ovens are responsible for thousands of lost souls,
yeah,
millions apparently, but that's if you consider it to be true.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, the people that go in there think it is true, and yet they still do that sort of stuff, which is
yeah.
absolutely, defiling the sacred, isn't it?
Yeah, really, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so a lot of narcissism going on because they're completely detached from other people's emotions.
Yeah, it's probably much of the newer generations as well, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's good to be aware of it. I don't feel like you need to deal with them very often. You know.
Yeah. You're not liable to come upon a full blown one very often in your
No,
life.
no.
Um, but I have been studying psychology for many years. Um, but this one crept up on me.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it can happen to the best of us.
yeah. Better
Oh,
wear a cross.
yeah, garlic cross. um, but yeah, I mean, I've always maintained that kids should be taught psychology in school
Yeah,
from the age of, let's say, 13, 14, or something like that. So they've got a few years before they leave school with some sort of knowledge of the fundamentals of human psychology, psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists and tricksters and all different sorts of evil that the human being can do. You see, we're not equipped to do this, to deal with it. And so we go out into the big world and we fall foul to it because the
yeah,
powers that be want to concentrate on getting us obedient little workers to serve them.
yeah,
Yeah, you see, because if we learnt about what it is to be a narcissist, then we would see that the vast majority of the world leaders are narcissists. The vast majority of people in positions of power are narcissists. They're
yeah,
narcissists, they're sociopaths, and they're psychopaths. That's the
yeah,
only reason they're there. They're absolutely designed to do that, and they rise up in the echelons of the hierarchy very, very quickly because the people at the top can see that they don't have any heart or soul, and
yeah,
so they will promote them to use them. And that's what they've always done, and that's what's happening with world leaders. And it's so apparent now in Britain. It really is apparent. We've got one of the worst ones we've ever had in our prime minister. He's called Keir Starmer, and he's full on socialist, communist, fascist, all those embroiled into one. And we're heading for very, very dangerous times. And so yeah, when you look into this sort of stuff, people they point out world leaders and their narcissistic traits, and they're a bunch of vipers. They really are.
yeah,
Completely lacking compassion and humanisms and anything. They're
yeah,
they're they're so far detached from that, and all that means anything to them is power.
yeah, yeah, and they are able to fake some kind of compassion and so on,
Yeah,
and
because they're good.
yeah, but after a while, some might see it, you know.
Well, you judge them by their actions and not what they
Yeah.
say, because their
Yes,
actions are
exactly.
all narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic. So you look at the proof of the pudding. Forget about all the beguiling and all the witchcraft that they do with their silver
Yes.
tongues. You look
Yeah.
at the deeds. And that's what you do. And you see too many people, they're beguiled by silver tongues and smiles and all that. All we're not going to do is look at Kamala Harris. She's a full blown communist. Families
Yeah.
stem from communism. Family stems from slave owners. They're full on socialist manipulators. But you see, the thing is about the communists is, and the fake socialists, they proclaim that it's for the benefit of the people, but it isn't. They're beguiling the people to manipulate them and to embroil them into their web of control.
Yeah.
That's what these people are. They're not doing it because they love humanity.
No. No.
So we've got this thing with Kamala Harris. Of course, Trump is a full blown narcissist. Um, uh, I don't know about Putin. People say Putin is. Most certainly, these people like Macron, the Canadian Trudeau, they're all very, very embroiled in narcissism, and
Yeah.
there have to be, otherwise they wouldn't get to those positions, because the positions and the things they are asked to do are absolutely anti-human, and
Yeah.
so they wouldn't be in those positions. And you can see that they are created. They're not elected by the people because nobody can sack them anymore. They won't be sacked and they won't resign.
Mm.
They're bulletproof.
Yeah.
So the narcissist is, of course, something to look out for. And
Yeah.
in this day and age, there's lots of information about it, and
Yeah.
about psychopaths and sociopaths. So if anybody's interested in the real depths of evil in the human psychology, then delve into those. But most people don't want to, you see, because it's too disturbing. It really is disturbing.
Yeah.
It's only those that are forced into it when they have been a victim
Yeah.
of one.
Hmm. 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 Because I have talked to some people about a certain person being a narcissist and so on. I mean, I was probably pretty aware of it, but it started to be more aware of it because of some things and so on. And I told them, yeah, well, you see, um, this, and that, how he acts and what he does, that's narcissistic behavior and so on. It
Yeah,
didn't seem like they believed me, but
they would.
he,
They wouldn't,
yeah,
because you've got to feel it. You really
yeah,
do have to feel it. If you don't feel it, it's never going to impact you.
yeah. Because they are led by their inner feelings and so on. This person can say something and then they feel something,
Yeah, and of
they
course,
don't think about what the words means,
no,
don't think rationally.
no,
I feel a feeling, it must be true because I feel this feeling. No, you listen to what the word says and so on, and what
yeah,
he does and so on. Yeah.
yeah. And when a narcissist is making maneuvers on you,
Yeah.
uh, nobody else will see it around,
Yeah.
unless they're experienced. But you see, the narcissist won't play their tricks on anyone they're not interested in. They need to want your energy, and
Yeah.
they want you because you're better than them, you're more powerful than them, you've got more spirit than them, you've got better qualities than them, and
Yeah.
so they're like flies round shit, and they'll pursue you to the ends of the earth, and they want to try to absorb your greatness,
Yeah.
but they never can, because uh, their emptiness is infinite.
Yeah.
It's infinitely empty, and it could never ever be filled. They're like black holes. It doesn't matter how much attention, how much love or passion or emotion they extract from somebody, they remain empty.
Hmm.
And when you look at it like
Yeah.
that, it's kind of terrifying, really.
Yeah, that's what's called narcissistic supply. They always need
Yeah,
it, yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Endlessly, endlessly.
Yeah.
All through their lives, they're getting it from someone.
Hmm.
And very often, they've got several people on the go,
Yeah.
and they play you off with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the, those people could never let go of their ego and go into absolutely presence where they are not doing what they always are doing, right?
Yeah, and I think it's because they're soulless.
Yeah,
I think they are actually soulless,
yeah,
because there isn't any genuine love there. They absolutely cannot love genuinely. When they cry crocodile tears. Where when they ask you to believe them, it's so fake, it's so phony, because there isn't an ounce of love, compassion, or sincerity in their eyes. Their eyes are dead. They're
yeah,
absolutely dead. They'll stare straight through you. They
yeah,
can't contact with your eyes as one soul to another. They can't do that. They'll look straight through you. When you look into their eyes, you'll see nothing except a void.
yeah. They might be charismatic, but there is
Yeah, they've
nothing
learnt all
there.
that. They're
Yeah,
very, very socially adept. They're very charismatic, and often they're very good looking and all
yeah,
that sort of stuff. But they're empty, and it stems from childhood trauma
yeah,
when they were defeated at some stage, where
mm,
the pain of whatever was going on was too great for their soul, and their soul absconded, and then a fake persona took over,
yeah,
and so all that they are is a fake persona. And you can look at their accreditation. They may have this and that, and there may be catwalk models, or there may be actors, or there may be PhDs, or this and the other. They like to get all that. They like their name up in lights, but because that prevents people from looking in to see if they've got a soul.
yeah.
Yeah, and they haven't. They're evil. Absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. The most bizarre thing I've ever encountered.
Yeah, I guess it can be horribly draining, and also because there's malignant narcissism, those who are really aggressive, and there's the fragile. I think is the other one, right?
The pretends to be the victim all the time.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
then there's a third sort as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
What what
think
what what's that one?
can't remember.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, the one that always turns it around to be the victim, and it's always your fault. And then there's the one which turns into the devil. Turns into the
Yeah,
devil when confronted.
yeah. When
Hmm.
confronted. And then their facade might be very shiny and big words and all that kind of stuff, grandiosity and so on.
Grandiose. Yeah,
Yeah,
grandiose. And uh, they won't display that in front of people because they never want to give the show away to anybody else. They're always going to do it in private quarters.
but if we say around their grandiosity, as like when they talk to people in general, as a leader person, then they show it off. Yeah.
Well, they're doing. kind of what Trump does. I'm going to build the best wall, and I'm going to make America great again. Nobody's going to make America great like I am, and
Yeah.
I build the best buildings. I build the best walls. I'm going to build a golf course. It's going to be the best golf course, and all that sort of thing. Everything has to be the best and the shiniest, and the most wonderful. Why would anybody need to do that all the time?
Yeah.
Because they're empty,
Yeah.
because nobody can see into their soul and say that that's a beautiful person, that's a kind person, that's a real honest human being. They don't have that. So they've got
Mm.
to have the biggest, shiniest building, the biggest, shiniest plane, and all the rest of it.
Mm.
And, very often they're in showbiz or movie stars and, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is just go onto their social media, and every single thing is about them.
Mm.
Nothing else. Nobody else. You won't see any pictures of anybody else. Just
No.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always, if it's a woman, it's always catwalk photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if it's a guy, he'll be in his Maserati, or piloting his plane, or all these wonderful, crazy things.
Yeah.
Because they're very good at go getting, because they can work their magic on many people, and they're not stupid. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, you'll never see them working in charities or any NGOs or anything like that, whereby they are frontlining, assisting people. No. If
Mm.
they're going to be assisting, they want their name in lights. They want to be, leading the show, but they won't get their hands dirty.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, we've done 50 minutes on that. Hang on, what
Yeah.
was that? Oh no,
1 hour and 50 minutes, maybe.
I think the timer says. Let me have a look. I think the timer says 1 hour and 25.
Hmm.
Um, exit full screen. Yeah, an hour and 25.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the next topic in the book?
The next topic in the book is morphic resonance, and I have just underlined one more thing, and it is like morphic resonance is a process whereby self-organizing systems inherit memory from previous similar systems, and that's on page 529.
So that'll be a good subject. It's a very important, powerful subject. So we'll read that line again when we
Yeah,
start the next chat, and then you'll be pretty familiar with morphic resonance. I think you already know quite a bit about it already, don't you?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so and then we'll be getting into evolution, Darwin's Origin of Species. We'll be getting into Carl Jung's archetypes and collective unconscious, and we're getting into the Godhead,
Maybe a bit
helmet.
of Freud.
Yeah, a little bit of Freud in there.
God helmet has been before,
Oh,
yeah.
Godhead, we've done that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
then we've got the simulation hypothesis.
Hmm.
We've got Brahman.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we've got a lot of powerful subjects. We've got Anunnaki in there. We've got Buddhism. So yeah, we've got a lot of topic stuff, mate. It's going to get pretty
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
Yeah. So well, just give me a shout then when you're ready, Andre,
Yeah.
and we'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. See you in a couple of days.
Okay, mate. See you soon.
Yeah. See you.
Bye.
Bye.